Now is the time to transform the dark yesterdays of man's inhumanity to man into the bright tomorrows of justice and freedom. Now is the time.
In 1969, there was a lot of social unrest in the whole country. The issue was to see the ARC as an advocacy organization, not unlike the NAACP. I don't see people recognizing what Jean Isherwood and Pat Clapp and Barbara Sistick and those people went through to get good services in the community. There was a confrontation with a under-deputy secretary of something or other from the Department of Welfare, and he leaned across the table and said, "You're not playing fair." And Barbara's response was, "We're not playing at all."
We didn't have a social worker. We had great family and wonderful neighbors, but no official supports. The Children's Institute Peter was attending encouraged me to join the ARC, the Association for Retarded Citizens. In Allegheny County, we had a very strong chapter. And the minute I got involved with the ARC, that changed my life.
In 1972, I went to Western State School and Hospital. I saw people naked or almost naked, rocking back and forth, you know, standing up or on the floor in a fetal position, and wooden slat benches and very little furniture in the room. And then there's a glass window and the staff are looking out through the window, monitoring the situation. And I thought, how could this be in early 1970s that we're essentially warehousing human beings and just ignoring every human need that they have? And I thought, if only people can see inhumanity, then they'll do something about it.
Bob was the one who first took me out into review and see what institutional care was like. There were two other moms I traveled with, Jean Isherwood and Barb Sistick. Bob Nelkin was the driver, and we would go to inspect, make unannounced visits to these centers. We would hear of abuses, we would hear of a lack of programming, and we were following up on that.
This group of moms were traveling all over the state. They were monitoring conditions at private facilities, in our public facilities, and I think it just got to a breaking point where these very, very courageous moms had said, "We've had it."
We were mother bears, and there was a confrontation we had with a superintendent who said, "Well, are you more interested in safety or are you more interested in program?" And one of us said, "That is an immoral question. The men and women and children who live here have a right to both safety and program."
I came to Pittsburgh in mid-1974, and having visited Polk many times, I was astonished the first time that I went onto a ward and saw just bed after bed after bed after bed, very little space in between, perhaps as many as 40 individuals living in a communal bedroom. Individuals would just come up to you almost like beggars, wanting attention, wanting a hug. As a young professional, it was just shocking to me.
So on one visit to Polk 40 years ago, April 1973, we insisted upon seeing a back ward, and we saw cages. We saw a human being in a cage, and the cage was about 6 feet tall, wooden slats on all sides and on top. The superintendent, Dr. McClellan, was with us and said, "This is a cage. Why do you have a cage?" He said, "I don't have enough money to have enough staff. I have lots of restraints that I have to use to protect the individuals and to protect others." So we asked him if there was any way he could not use it. And he said, "No, in fact, our medical staff helped design it." I think we knew that this was a pivotal moment.
We immediately called Helene Wolkemoth, who was the Secretary of Public Welfare, and she, either the very next day or the day after, came, saw the cages, and fired the superintendent.
And there's this great, iconic Post-Gazette, April 1973, above the fold, big headline: "Superintendent fired, staff to be retrained." And it's the staff to be retrained part which is really the exciting moment, because it wasn't just we're going to change the captain of the ship. It was, this is unacceptable, we need to find a better way. What happened next was pretty amazing.
My colleagues and mentors at the ARC had blown the roof off the place. They had done the work necessary to convince the Department of Public Welfare that those conditions were deplorable, unacceptable, and so the department, without litigation in this case, decided that they were going to rapidly move hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people back to their communities. Some younger families take it for granted that the supports that they receive were always there. And I work to help younger families appreciate that the family members who preceded them left really their blood on the street to work to create the community support system that we have.
It was very hard work. We learned from each other, we strengthened each other. We as parent advocates learned so much. Instead of just concentrating on our own son or daughter, we were able to see other people, and that was a very strong healing process. I see people advocating now in just as strenuous ways. They may not be looking at institutions with 6, 5, 4, 3,000 people in them, but you know, as a mother, as a parent, as an advocate, you never rest. You never rest